August 6, 1945 hit the news. It was the day the first nuclear bomb was dropped in a city, devastating the world. The bombing of Hiroshima was the first time an atomic bomb was used for war, and after it was dropped, the effects would last for years. Hiroshima is located at the southwestern end of Honshu, the main island of Japan. It is divided by 7 deltaic rivers. In the beginning, Hiroshima was just a small fishing village, but it began to grow. During the late 1800s and the early 1900s, Hiroshima's population and prosperity increased greatly. By World War II, the population had grown to over 380,000, and it became a major military city for the war. Because Japan was Germany's ally during World War II, many of Japan's cities were destroyed by bombs. Hiroshima, however, was relatively unaffected by the war. Still, they took precautions, such as building air raid shelters and having fire prevention and evacuation drills. Unfortunately, these did not protect them from the horror the Manhattan Project created.
The Manhattan Project was the codename for a project of making atomic weapons. It officially started in August of 1942. The idea for the bomb came from the minds of many different people. Julius Robert Oppenheimer was credited as the one who created it, though it took the work of many. Albert Einstein and a Danish scientist named Niels Bohr were, among others, heavily involved in the project. Bohr was one of the first to see the problems that bombing would create. Over 500,000 people were employed before the bombs were finished. 3 secret cities were constructed, and over $2 billion were invested in the Manhattan Project. What came out of it? 2 bombs, the smaller one destined to drop on Hiroshima. It was nicknamed Little Boy. Little Boy was a uranium bomb that weighed only 5 tons, but was equivalent to between 20,000 and 25,000 tons of TNT. It had 235 pounds of uranium, 130 rested at its core. 15 B-29 bombers were modified for the project. Colonel Paul W. Tibbets, the pilot, chose one of the planes from its original owner, Robert A. Lewis, and renamed it the Enola Gay, after his mother. There were 12 men instead of the usual 9, including Tibbets, U.S. Navy Captain Deke Parsons, and Staff Sergeant George R. Cairn.
The mission was as delicate as fine china, especially since it was the first atomic bombing. The day of the bombing, weather planes were used to ensure there was no cloud formation. The sky was as clear as glass, perfect for bombing. The Enola Gay took off from Tinian, a small island about 6 hours away from Japan, at 2:45 on August 6, their time, which was 11:45 on August 5th in Washington, D.C. Parsons armed the bomb on the way there, a delicate process that could make the mission a success or condemn them all. The project had been cloaked in secrecy. Most of the crew didn't even know the details of the mission until the day of, including Parsons. The Enola Gay arrived 15 seconds after the scheduled time, 8:15 Japan time, and 3 seconds later, Little Boy leapt from the plane. The bomb was so strong that Enola Gay had to do a 180-degree turn to escape. Little Boy exploded 43 seconds after drop, between 8,500 and 19,000 feet above the target, Aoi Bridge. Karen, the tail gunner, had the best view of it, but all anyone could see was a flash as bright as the sun. As the Enola Gay retreated, a 2-tiered cloud, commonly referred to as a mushroom cloud, rose above the site of destruction. However, there is more to come.
Most of the direct effects happened within the first 10 seconds, some even sooner. First, there was radiation and heat, giving people 3rd-degree burns within a wide radius. Seconds later, there was a huge shockwave. It blew in windows and knocked over the tiny charcoal stoves commonly used to cook breakfast. The stoves would easily tip over and ignite the wooden houses common in Japan. This would be the making of a very large fire, not to mention the fire started from the earlier wave of heat. Soon the wind picked up, helping the fire spread over most of the city like lava rolling down a volcano. Within a mile, most buildings were completely destroyed, and within 3 miles, somewhere between 60,000 to 90,000 buildings were destroyed. About 5 square miles, or 13 square kilometers of the city was destroyed. Some didn't even realize they were dying because of the amounts of radiation they had been exposed to. Most exposed to radiation died within a week, leaving many survivors with no family. About 65 doctors died, leaving few to tend to the masses of dying or injured. About 70,000 to 100,000 others died.
In the confusion, most who were still conscious enough to think thought that a bomb had exploded right outside their house, since no one knew it was possible for there to be such a destructive force. A man once wrote, "And these atomic bombs which science burst upon the world that night were strange even to the men who used them." 9 days after the bombing of Hiroshima and 6 days after the bombing of Nagasaki, Japan surrendered. The effects the bomb left on Japan would continue, though. By the end of 1945, about 60,000 had died from radiation sickness, the effects of which include vomiting and diarrhea. A common effect experienced by those who did survive was hair loss. Years later, many survivors would still suffer from radiation and bear the scars of their past, plagued with nightmares of the horrors they had seen. By 2004, the death toll was 237,062.
Hiroshima eventually recovered after many years. It developed major automobile, machinery, and shipbuilding industries, and has regained its importance. However, the bombing of Hiroshima did not just affect Hiroshima, it affected others too, which is probably the reason it is a turning point. It was the first nuclear weapon used for war, as well as the first to be dropped from a plane, so even those who made the bomb could not know if it would work as expected. There was so much uncertainty in the project that the bombing could be considered history's greatest gamble. Before, it was more than ideas on paper. America was thoroughly invested in it, even constricting 3 secret cities: Los Alamos, New Mexico, Hanford, Washington, and Oak Ridge, Tennessee.
Also, there was more destruction from Little Boy than there was from Fat Man, the bomb dropped in Nagasaki, so Hiroshima left more of an effect on the world. Dropping the atomic bomb stopped the war, and while it condemned many, more would have been killed by the war if the bombs had not been dropped. Weapons are usually slow to evolve, but the nuclear bomb went from idea to reality in less than a decade. Other countries wanted to equal this new power, such as South Africa, which managed to build 6 nuclear bombs. The Cold War, which was when the Soviet Union and China made hundreds of nuclear weapons to equal America's power, would not have happened if not for the bombing of Hiroshima. There have been more than 525 nuclear explosions since Hiroshima. Luckily, none were for war other than the bombing of Nagasaki.
There were good effects too, such as a new, more efficient source of power, making people more cautious of war than any one of history's most devastating wars. It led to an endless amount of possibilities that could be used for bad, but could more easily be used for good. The bombing of Hiroshima left a mark on this world that remains today.